It's been a good 8 months since I've done a video on the quad that I fly, so I thought it was time for an update. In those 8 months I've been working on perfecting this, which is my 6S digital 4-in-1 5-inch setup. It's got a no holds barred approach, so premium components, tons of attention to detail, and this video I'm going to go over everything about it, so the components, the setup, the tune, and all the little details that make it just perfect. Also, there's a special announcement. I have been picked up by a company to represent them, and it's someone whose product I've been using for quite a while now, so I couldn't be happier to get noticed by them, and it's an absolute pleasure to have them on as a sponsor. So who could it be? For those that don't know, FetTech is a company run by Felix Nielsen, who was the original developer of KISS at Flyduino. So he left them to start his own company, and that's who FetTech is. And I personally use the 45 amp ESC. It's super special. It's the only ESC on the market that has sine wave control and 128 kilohertz PWM frequency. And what that means is your motors are smoother. You might be wondering why this one looks so clean, and that's because I've just finished building this one. It hasn't been flown yet, and that's because I'm going to be giving it away to one of you. So to be in with a chance of winning this prize, which has probably a net value of over £500, all the components on here, if it wasn't thanks to my sponsors like FetTech providing the ESC and Unmanned for helping me get the DJI stuff and the RC Power motors. So if it wasn't for them, then this probably wouldn't be happening. But for you, this is an amazing opportunity to get a proper premium 6S digital build for nothing. All you have to do is just wait till the end of the video and we'll talk about how you can enter. I can't announce a new sponsor without showing some flight footage, so let's see what this can do.
I'm gonna do it like this. Like a teacher to his kids, lesson learned, class dismissed. And do it like this. You'll be adversary, I'll be legendary. 6 feet under buried in the cemetery. I got a whole lot of fire burning in these bones. Make a moment of silence before we watch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It was the 50 megabit, I could see, but so much confidence.
Watch me now, watch me now. Watch me now, watch me now.
Yeah.
I wanna do it my way. Watch me now, watch me now. Ain't nobody do it like I do it, do it. Watch me now. Watch me now, ain't nobody do it like I do it, do it. I'm doing my way,
Right, let's get into what makes this build then. Firstly, the base components. We've got an Armatan Badger 5-inch DJI Edition frame. I've always used Armatan stuff, to be honest with you, and I haven't really had any problems with them. And the warranty just makes a lot of sense. So the warranty, if you win this, will get transferred over to you. When switching to 6S, I had to find a suitable motor, and the RC InPower 1860 kV GTS V2s is what I'm using here. They are quite a high kV, but when paired with the Johnny props, it is just the perfect sweet spot. The fact they come in pink and blue as well is just like icing on the cake. Working inwards, we have tiny LEDs race-light wire on the arms. Now this, I would always recommend using race wire just so you can change motors over when you're out in the field much easier. And these ones have 4 LEDs that you can customize the color on, so that just seemed like a no-brainer. Inside, I'm running a KISS V2 flight controller and the FetTech 45 amp ESC that I just spoke about. The reason I'm not running a FetTech FC yet is just because I have a couple of these KISS boards left over, and honestly there's not a lot of difference between them. The board layout is slightly different, but the firmware and everything and the gyro is the same, so they perform very similar. And we have a FetTech spike absorber and a 50-volt cap attached to the ESC. For video, we're using the DJI Air unit, the full-size one, and the stock antennas. Honestly, I haven't really had any problem with the stock antennas. I know people try all sorts of things, but to me, over time, I've found that these ones actually kind of last the longest. They all have pretty comparable performance, so really it's just about the durability, and the coax on these is nice and stiff, and that's what you want when they're sticking up at the back like that. For the radio link, obviously it's a Crossfire Nano receiver, no surprise there. There's also a little Beck in there, tucked in just to power the Air unit. One of the things people worry about when using KISS is that it doesn't have an OSD, but when you're using digital, it doesn't matter because the OSD is built into the goggles. So as long as you've got a spare UART on the board, you can just connect that to the Air units and get all your OSD information. Right, that's the base components covered. I'll just list them on the screen here so you can see an overview of everything. I want to talk now about the sort of little details, the things that kind of make this quad unique, things that you kind of learn over time and trial and error and that sort of thing. So the first thing you'll notice is there's a cool paint job on the side of the arms and the top and bottom plates. There's no reason for that except it looks cool. If you look at the bottom, you'll see there are quite a few different types of screws. We're not using the same screws anywhere. So this is basically to try and save weight. We use aluminium screws where we can, but there are some places that you can't. Like on the arms, we're still using steel because the vibrations do cause aluminium screws to back out because you can't tighten them down as hard. Same goes for the camera cage. We're still using steel in there for the same reason. Elsewhere though, we're using aluminium motors and standoffs. We're using all aluminium and we're trying to color match, so they're all pink and blue. The stack actually uses titanium. So we have a solid 22mm titanium bolts for the stack, and that gives it infinite strength and is super light. So the Immortal T, you'll notice, is mounted in the middle. Most people mount them like on the arm or on the back, and both of those positions I find it gets chewed up very quickly. If on the back, if you're doing any kind of reverse dives or Maddie flips and stuff and you hit the floor, yeah, they just get totally mangled. On the arm, the props always seem to get in them when you go upside down. So yeah, the middle for me has been the most durable location. It might not be the best for signal or range, but for the type of flying I do, which is generally close range, sort of proximity flying, it's been totally fine. Nice thing about the Badger as well is the DJI antennas are protected by the back, and also they can't pop out. So the MMCXs are actually kind of locked in by the standoffs at the back because they have that flat back. So I really like that about the Badger, and it means that you can just use the stock antennas and not need to worry about any kind of fancy mounting. Speaking of the DJI, the cable that comes with the DJI to connect to the power and the flight controller is awful. So I've replaced it with one from Flywoo, and these are really nice quality silicone wires, and they come already harnessed up, so you don't need to do any sort of crimping or sorting of that sort of connector. And one of the last details, we have the Rotor Riot quad skids as well, and handily they do come in pink, so I didn't have to print my own. I can just buy them straight from Rotor Riot, and they are injection molded nylon, so even if you do print your own, they're never going to be as good as buying the real thing because the nylon is much more slippy. So I actually have my stack soft mounted. I know that KISS can be hard mounted, and most often it is, but I found that with the titanium bolt there is absolutely no give. And so all of the force of any impact is translated to the flight controller, which is at the top. And yeah, that to me has actually killed 2 flight controllers. So since soft mounting and using the titanium, that's been fine. And I haven't really noticed any difference in performance, to be honest. KISS is just real good. We have a super skinny GoPro Hero 6 and 7 mount at the front. I'll supply that with the competition, but if you want any other mount, it's a Badger. You'll be able to find mounts for the Badger for whatever camera you use. So you're probably wondering how much it weighs, and with a 1100 milliamp 6S battery and a GoPro Hero 7 Black, the all-up weight is 754 grams, which is on the heavy side, not gonna lie, but kind of suits my style of flying. I like being able to get a lot of momentum and, you know, just like let it float. I have been experimenting with getting the Caddx Vista in the back of a normal Badger frame, so not the DJI one, and the saving is about 20 grams. So this is probably about 734 grams all up weight, which is something. I mean, 20 grams is 20 grams. So yeah, if you need it to be slightly lighter, you can go for the Vista and the non-DJI frame. Just before we get into the setup and the PIDs and rates, one thing a lot of people ask is what camera angle I run. And it is, the Badger has a range and I just stick it all the way to the bottom, which means I'm running it at 10 degrees. So now you know. So let's talk setup, let's talk PIDs and rates and all those kind of good things, because this is another question that comes up a lot. And I don't really do a lot of tuning, to be honest with you, because it's KISS, it doesn't really need a lot of tuning. So I'm gonna plug it in and let's have a look on the computer. Most of what I have here is stock. There are a couple of differences in the setup, in the PIDs, but it's really not that different. I generally up all my PIDs a little bit because the quad is heavier, so it's good to have slightly more aggressive PIDs. But the one thing that is also important to do is put the yaw D on 0. I find that it gets rid of most of those sort of like oscillations that you sometimes get at mid throttle. I use one wire as well instead of D-Shot. So one wire is FETEC's own protocol. It has the equivalent speed of D-Shot 600 because it's 2400, but it's multiplexed 4 different motors in one wire. But it actually has better error correction than D-Shot on its own. So for that reason, you'll get like a lot less desync problems or anything like that. So if you can take the speed of D-Shot 600 instead of 2400, which a lot of people use on KISS, I personally couldn't notice the difference. I did actually do a blind test between 2400 and 150 and couldn't notice the difference. Not saying you won't, some people probably can, but if that kind of thing isn't a big deal to you, I recommend using one wire. It's much easier to set up as well on the actual board because it's just one wire. Other things, apart from the D yaw being 0, everything else just being bumped up ever so slightly, and one wire, that's about it. Something that I've done for a while is put the set point weight to 79%. I cannot tell you how I got to that number. It does seem a little weird. You'd think like 80, 75? Nope, 79. That's the number I use. Adaptive filter on, as always. Yeah, everything else is default. I run props out, so your control direction is reversed. But yeah, I don't think there's any difference in performance whether you have props in or out. So moving on to rates, this is the most subjective thing of all on any quad. And my rates are 714 degrees per second on roll and pitch and 570 degrees per second on yaw. And I've used these numbers for months. So there they are, 1.72.3 and 0.94, 0.67.3. So onto the ESC settings, there's nothing really to do here except make sure you've got the latest firmware, which I believe I do, 127, yep. And you can also enable this feature called soft brake, which slows down your motors gradually when you disarm. Not super gradually, so like that it lands, but just it takes, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a second to slow them down instead of doing it immediately. And this basically helps with any kind of voltage spikes that can be caused by doing that like really quick braking. So all that's left to do is tell you how you can win this thing. So I am going to do the same thing that I normally do, which is just ask that you subscribe and leave a comment with a $sign in it. And that will put you into a draw for this. And I'm not going to necessarily announce it in the next video. I'm probably going to leave it for a couple of videos because I want to let everybody have a chance of getting in on this one because it is such a big prize. And I'll probably try and promote it a couple of times in the future videos and on Instagram. So yeah, so that is my dream perfect setup that I've been working on for roughly 8 months, and it is in its final form. And good luck if you do enter the competition. Make sure to hit that bell so you'll be notified of future videos, and you can find out if you win this thing. It has happened before where somebody hasn't watched the video where I announced them, and so I do have a couple of prizes that have been unclaimed in the past. Really hope that doesn't happen with this one because this needs to go to a good home. All right, thanks for watching everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.